time to start.
Yeah.
The giant spaghetti. Well, good afternoon everyone again. My name is Slovakia and I'm from Belarus team, and I'm going to present our refuted discussion on the task named breaking spaghetti, which we have just seen. First, certainly we should start from the mark to the report we have seen. For the report, the biggest, very important point I must state is coming to an idea of probability of breaking, because certainly in this way we're coming to the researching stochastic phenomena, and for this reason we certainly should say that we can say only about probability of breaking. And this point I very disagree with respected opponent. Also, then we have seen some dependencies on the velocity, angle, and length of spaghetti. Certainly there's great experimental dependencies with rather good errors, so I really appreciate this. Then we have seen several ways of breaking. This is, very good, because in some other reports I've seen usually only considering just one way of breaking. Here we could see almost all of them. And then all of these ways of breaking were put into the computer model to describe breaking. Certainly computer model is usually the best option for such a report with big amount of parameters where you just can't make an analytical equation. For this reason, computer model certainly is a great way to avoid a big number of experiments and just put some parameters inside it and see what happens. However, I must say about some negative points of the report. Still, not all of the parameters were considered. For example, the diameter of the spaghetti. It was mentioned as a parameter, but it wasn't considered. Also, certainly some parameters such as young models shouldn't have been considered just because they can be researched due to putting into the computer model. However, I do not appreciate this way of fulfilling the task, because I still want some experimental work on such parameters. Same, I can say that experimental setups weren't clear most of the time, thanks to the respected opponent that he was asking about the way of releasing spaghetti, and that's certainly a very good point. Also, it wasn't clear about output plot of the reporter. I still can't understand what did those colors mean at all. Then we come to some physics, because in this report we have seen only mathematics. And I must state that, for example, I'm not sure that dynamic bending coefficients will be the same as static coefficients for the stress, and this is certainly a big fail in this report. Same I can say a bit about border effects, which were considered in the discussion, because there were no experiments on the vertical fall, but no theory on this way. The same, there were totally no experiments on, for example, fall like this. The same, there were no theory, it won't work for such fall. So it's really a bad thing. And also for critical curvature, I still don't understand how it was measured through experimental model. For the opponent, in his speech, he stated about measurements of spaghetti. He said about maximal stress, that's certainly a great point. The same about experimental setup, I mentioned it, and named some missing parameters. However, he also named as missing some parameters which were in the solution, so that's a bad point. Still, I must say that failure to understand the stochastic type of phenomena is a great failure of the opponent. And that computer model is a nice way of prediction. So it shouldn't be said that we can't predict what breaking of spaghetti. During the discussion, I can say that measurements of spaghetti parameters were rather required for them as point. And the border effects about vertical fall were a great question by the opponent. Thanks to him for this. However, his explanation with waves is also great. His asks for experiments is great. However, dynamic versus static stresses weren't considered, and also sometimes opponent tried to interrupt.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And now we have the concluding remarks of the report.
So what I would like to say was, we found the 0 probability of breaking a spaghetti, we found the 100% probability, and we considered all the probabilities in between. Therefore, I believe we have fulfilled the task. What we did was, for any given spaghetti, we can measure the required parameters, feed them into our simulation, and predict the behavior of the spaghetti, whether it breaks or not, or with what probability it breaks, depending on critical things like the value, like the impact speed and the impact angle. I'm sorry, I would like to clear up one thing that I made a mistake. Our simulation calculates with longitudinal waves and takes them into account. Therefore, we also have a theory for the vertical fall. What we did was we fulfilled the task for any given piece of spaghetti, and therefore I believe that this presentation did all that it needed to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you.